I'm going to title this video, Why Sportsters Are Generally Better for Most Riders. First is the power to weight ratio, and I'm just going to concentrate on this. So, like a Stockport Sportster puts out, I don't know, whatever it puts out. This one puts out about 80 horsepower. It's got bigger valves, a cam, which ain't that much to do. It's got 20 over pistons and the exhaust and a Dynajet and ignition. So it does about 80 horsepower. It weighs 500 pounds. So 80 horsepower, 500 pounds. You go to a Dyna to get the same horsepower to weight ratio as the 80 horsepower is in this. The Dyna weighs about 650. You got to have 104 horsepower. That bike needs some serious modifications to get up to 104 to have the same power weight ratio. Now, if you go to a Softail, say that weighs around 750 roughly, you got to have 120 horsepower to have the same power to weight ratio, right? And if you go to a touring bike, say that weighs 850, you got to have 136 horsepower. So somebody will come along and say, I got a 114 inch, I got a Milwaukee 8 or something, even like that. And the power to weight ratio is nothing compared to like even this old Evo Sportster. This is an early Evo, it's an 89. Now, the Sportster S, I know it's kind of like not a Sportster, but I think that's going to take time for people to get used to. That bike, I think it's got 120 horsepower. So, I mean, it's astronomically faster than the other Harleys. And these do ride pretty good. The thing is, I got a suspension in the back of this. It's still the stock shocks. I got them pumped up all the way, so it rides really hard. It rides almost like a hardtail practically. But people were riding cobbled together bikes back in the 70s and 80s and 60s, of course, that had Springer front ends. They were rigid frame. They didn't even have the pogo seat in it with the springs they would have. Sometimes it wouldn't even have a seat with springs. It was just mounted right to the frame. And they're riding the bikes across country with no windshield or nothing like that. No fairings, no windshield. And I'm like, they're telling you the Sportster, you can't really, to do 200 miles on this bike is nothing, even without having this Mustang seat. I don't know what I could do on a Mustang seat. I could probably ride it 500 miles in a day, no problem, with the Mustang seat. I know I could ride at least 250 miles with the stock seat in comfort. That's me. Maybe because I'm used to this the way it is. I don't know what it is. And they're saying it's not really set up for touring. I'm like, don't bother me. I don't have a rubber mounted engine or nothing. But the power to weight ratio is like, the bike it's not a lightweight bike. It's a lightweight bike compared to other Harleys. The Dynas, I might get a Dyna, but I'm actually kind of leaning to getting a second Sportster as a bike that I have as a spare, because then the parts interchangeability would be great. The Dyna has a lot of parts interchangeability with this bike too, on some things. Like the battery, front tire, couple things. The front forks are basically the same, I think, too. They think they are the same. It's a narrow glide on the front of a Dyna, but the beauty of getting a bigger bike is that the bigger engine, you can get panhead engines like from S&S and RevTech and whatever, all kinds of places. Whereas if you're looking for like an old Sportster engine, it gets tougher. But I was looking at maybe the 91 and 99 Sportster to get one of those, not in place of this, as an addition to this. But I might get a Dyna. But, I think a lot of times people not all the time, every bike's got advantages and disadvantages, even the tire size. Like a 21-inch tire, if you have that on a big bike, it makes it easier to head up and get into the corners. But if you got the fat tire, it's more stable, like on the straightaways. Sometimes it's all about looks, sometimes it's about performance. No one bike does everything, but the Sportster is really kind of like the jackknife of all trades in a master Harley, a master of all aspects of what you want in a bike, because you can make a Sportster into pretty much anything. And the one thing that gets me with like say you got a 66 Chevy Chevelle or a 66 Chevy Impala. So one's a full-size Chevy and one's a mid-size Chevy. a Sportster is not a fucking small bike. It's actually a fairly large bike as far as like, it's small for a Harley, right? But it's like saying, does anybody go up to you and say, if you got a 66 Chevelle, you got half a Chevelle, half a Chevy, because you got a Chevelle? No. They only do that shit in the Harley world sometimes. I mean, not most people. People that know shit don't do that. But, you know, I'm looking at possibly getting maybe even an early twin cam Dyna, but I realized that I'd have to do stuff for those spring tensioners on that bike to make it good. The 91 to 99 Harley, like the 5-speed Sportster, that bike is pretty damn reliable, and it's got a lot of power, just power to weight ratio right out of the box, and it's pretty similar to this older 4-speed 89 chain-driven Sportster. So, but don't ever let anybody talk out of getting a Sportster, man. I hear this all the time. I was going to get a Sportster, but they talked me into getting this one because you'll outgrow the other one. Really? Really? I had this bike since 1989. And, it's like, it serves me very, very well. I mean, I don't know. If you got something you like, and it took me a little while to set things up a certain way. I put the 6-inch risers on it, stock handlebar, the front highway pegs, the different seats, some other things. The air cleaner being moved in a little more. That's the K&N filter, Screaming Eagle setup, whatever the hell you call it. That actually is better with the leg room on that side. Just a few things here and there. It's very comfortable for me. It vibrates. It's not a rubber mount. It vibrates. It's absolutely fine. Like I said, back in the day, they used to ride. They weren't even, when they were riding the bikes, not only did they have no suspension in the back, it was all rigid. And of course, there was no rubber mounted engine. There's no rubber mounted engine in this one. This wasn't, there's rubber mounts right here. This wasn't even rubber mounted to the handlebar. I got the stock grips. I don't even have like those grips that are like foam where you feel less vibration. I don't even have that. You just don't use a death grip on it when you're riding. It doesn't bother you. I could ride this bike around for hours in comfort. I don't know. I mean, if I was driving it cross country, I think then I would definitely be sold on the bigger bikes. But when actually you think about it, in your car, how often do you even take trips over 50 or 60 miles one way? Not very often. And that's nothing for a Sportster. And your power to weight ratio, it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I guess, if you like touring bikes, you like women with a lot of meat on them too, man. Maybe that's the other part of it too. I mean, you like your women like thin and trim and thin waist, athletic. Then you like a Sportster. One way of looking at it.